Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. I'm Dr. Yvonne Su. I am the director of the Center for Refugee Studies, and we host this summer course every single year for the last 29 years. So this is our 29th time running it. We have had 1,200 participants over these years from 17 plus countries. So it's very exciting. Every year, we look forward to welcoming a new cohort to join us. And every year we have a slightly different topic. And this year it is on a quite pressing issue, climate migration. And we want to ask questions about the future of climate migration, not just what's happening now, but we also want to build skills and do training workshops on how to study this topic in a more innovative and interesting and future looking way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the program a little bit, of course, go over the dates and etc., and run through the program, and then we're going to go into the costs, etc., and then we'll have room for your questions. Does that sound good? Can I have some reactions? Okay, great. So as you can see, everyone can see my screen? Veda, can I get a thumbs up? Okay, good. So it is running from June 2nd to 6th at York University in Toronto. So it's a full week program. We have programming from the morning to around 4 or 5 every day. And sometimes we have like a dinner or a social. So please expect that the whole week you'll be quite busy. And again, we're talking about climate migration, climate mobility. If you look to the middle of this, we're talking about redefining research approaches, developing innovative frameworks and methods to address the challenges of climate migration. We're focusing on resilience, climate justice, and ethical adaptation strategies. We want to enhance policy and governance understanding, explore the intersection of language, governance, and human rights in shaping adaptive policies and addressing vulnerabilities. And we want to foster collaborative visioning, engage in skill building workshops, interdisciplinary collaboration, which involves a lot of networking, which I think is important to many of you, and to envision a transformative solution, or sorry, to envision transformative solutions for climate migration by 2050. We really want to ask participants to be more forward thinking, to be more future oriented, and to be focused on finding solutions, policy interventions, and brainstorm about how we can contribute to the scholarship and the policy and the positive changes when it comes to the topic of climate migration. We definitely do not want to be sensational. That's not the point of this workshop. If anything, people who are coming to this workshop, when they look through our speakers list, knows that we're trying to be very pragmatic about this topic. And I think that's also perhaps why many of you are interested in this webinar, is so you can get more empirically focused, pragmatic thinking on this topic. We will be starting on the 2nd with light lunch. We'll do a visioning exercise with me where we kind of go through what the purpose of the summer course is. We'll have an opening discussion. Dr. Roger Zetter, Emeritus Professor of Refugee Studies at Oxford University, has been heavily involved in putting this program together with me. He's got 40 to 50 years of expertise studying forced migration, and more recently, the last 10 or so years, looking at environmental change and migration. He has written one of the most cited papers in migration and in refugee studies on the use of labels. And how giving somebody a label like refugee or migrant gives them a prescribed set of rights, resources, and goods. So how we call climate migrants, whether they're going to be migrants or refugees, or how the language we use to go about it is actually quite important when it comes to policy implications, and how the populations locally and globally treat this group of people. And then we'll have a more legal scholars with us. Francois Crepeau, professor, faculty of law at McGill University, has done a significant amount of work on governance and legal gaps when it comes to climate change and migration. Maureen Silkoff is a practicing refugee immigration lawyer in Canada, and they've been involved in a lot of thinking about Canada's potential role in climate migration governance. Then we're going to have a virtual roundtable because, of course, many of you know that this will be in person and online. So it's a hybrid experience. So we also have speakers online as well, and it contributes to lowering our carbon footprint, of course. So we have Dr. Helene Benaviste, an assistant professor at the Department of Environmental and Social Science at Stanford University. And she asked a really important question, which is a global climate migration is a story of who, not just how many. A lot of the headlines and politicians might want us to focus on how there might be millions or some misquote that there might be 1 billion climate refugees by 2050, but that's not true. And that's also not where the energy or the focus should be. It also we should look at who is moving, and of course, importantly, who is being left behind. So we not know a lot of people who are elderly or children or people who have disabilities. They're not moving as a result. And sometimes they argue that they're actually trapped in these climate vulnerable places or places where sea level rise is increasing and threatening them. Dr. Andre Milan is a senior program manager at the Global Center for Climate Mobility. He's just returned from a month-long trip in Tuvalu, where he engaged with a lot of local people as well as policymakers on being able to create people positive adaptation journeys in the Pacific, but he's also got experience in Africa and other parts of the world. So he'll bring that experience. And again, his recent trip to us. Dr. David Warthall, the associate professor at the College of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences, he'll be talking about framing mobility, policy language, climate migration in a changing world. So we'll have a very rich discussion. And then we're extremely lucky to be joined by the Honorable Ratna Amdavar, a former senator in Canada, who has done an immense amount of work on migration in Canada as a senator, overseeing many passing of bills, studying this topic really intensely, and of course, immigrant herself. And she will be discussing the landscape of migration globally and in Canada with all of us. So we're very honored to have her join us. Then, of course, each day you will have a nice lunch break. We'll cover that as well as these coffee breaks. Then we'll move on to talking about trauma, climate anxiety, and lived experiences. And we're shaping this more like a sharing circle. So participants are able to join as well. We really want this summer course to be participant involvement heavy. So while you see many of these experts' names, their main purpose is to start the conversation. They're not necessarily going to be just talking heads. We really want this to be engaging for the participants who have spent their money and their time to join us. So Dr. Sean Holman from University of Victoria is an award-winning journalist who's dedicated most of his life to documenting through journalism and documentaries the impact of climate change consequences in Canada and abroad. And his recent project, the Climate Disaster Project, takes stories of Canadians who have experienced wildfires, floods, and other disasters and gets them to tell their story in a trauma-informed manner to share it with the rest of the world. And he argues that a warmer world is a more traumatic world. So how do we deal with that? Dr. Enzo Valentino is the director of the program on resilient communities out of the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative. And Enzo has decades of experience in climate change and has done lots of work in the Philippines, where this is drawing his recent work, Climate Anxiety and Disaster Preparedness. He's going to draw from a nationally representative survey that was done in the Philippines just last year, where they interviewed or surveyed almost 5,000 households to talk about this topic, and he'll bring that to us. And Jill Ann Santiago, Migration Resource Center Canada, is going to be talking about the experiences of climate migration and climate change from migrants themselves in Canada. And through her experience working with migrants in Canada, she's heard that climate change has come up more and more frequently. So we'll use that to have a sharing circle with everybody, and people and the participants can share their experiences of climate change, their experiences of anxiety that's related to climate change and climate change futures. Now, the interesting thing about us, and I think what really cements us as a summer course, an organization that's really interested in participant involvement, is this idea of reverse mentoring. You've heard participants speak for a whole day now. You've heard experts speak for a whole day now about the various topics. Now, reverse mentoring is this rapid style where participants get to challenge experts on their thinking and reshape the discussion with new ideas, where we give you the floor to add your own ideas, build off of other people's ideas, or straight up criticize and say that certain insights, certain aspects have been completely overlooked. And our experts, as we call them, have been trained to be completely welcoming and kind of disarmed when it comes to that, to allow for further participation and more in-depth participation. So, and then we'll have a welcome dinner the first evening. So that's also very nice. We bring every people together and network. The next day, on this Tuesday, will be focused on livelihoods, adaptation, and displacement. And livelihoods, as many of you probably know, is an important part, an important consequence of climate change. Roger Zetter will be back to talk about labor migration pathways as a result of climate change. He's been doing a lot of really important work with the International Labor Organization on this topic. It's something they care deeply about. So Roger will bring that to the fore. We have Dr. Sarah Miller, who's a senior fellow with Refugees International, which is an international NGO, on climate displacement and economic inclusion, bringing lessons from Mozambique. And then we'll have Dr. Frank Objebwan, University States International University in Africa, talk about climate-induced migration and integration in the Arctic, navigating justice, technology, and resilience. So we really got a very global representation of how climate change is going to impact livelihoods. Then we'll be doing adaptation, localization, and dislocation, where Jocelyn Perry is another senior advocate from Refugee International. Will be talking about their work in localizing climate adaptation and refugee hosting communities. So here's a situation where people are already displaced and in hosting communities, and there's a potential for double displacement as a result of climate change, and what could be done to prevent that. Enzo will be back to talk about localizing humanitarian aid amid climate disasters in conflict zones. Part of Enzo's expertise is in military, is a military background, but in conflict zones. So what happens when you have climate disasters like typhoons that hit the Philippines more than 20 times a year, and you have a conflict zone in the south of Philippines, which has a history of being in conflict in the autonomous region in Mindanao, and you're trying to get humanitarian aid. So he'll talk about that complexity with everyone. And we'll have Dr. Julia Blocher, a project lead and scientist at Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, talk about habitability thresholds and the role of climate mobility among local coping strategies. Then we'll have lunch, and then you'll have me and Dr. Jiji Zhang, who's the director of Diversity Lab and director of the Toronto Metropolitan Center for Immigration and Settlement, talk about research tools. So this is kind of the skill building workshop part I was talking about, where we're really invested and interested in skill building through this summer course. So you'll be taught some hands-on approaches, some innovative ways to do climate migration research from mainly the perspective of the people who are impacted. So we'll be talking about photo voice, video voice, participatory film, other types of filmmaking, as well as more innovative tools like body mapping. I think many of you probably have not heard of that. And that's when you get a participant to actually lay on a big piece of paper and have somebody else draw out their whole body and use the different body parts as prompts for questions about, perhaps we talk about climate anxiety. And then you point to somebody's head and they can talk about climate anxiety, but you might point to someone's hands and feet, and different things will come out as a result of using the body mapping and using the body itself as a way to prompt people to think about these topics. And then we will be doing reverse mentoring again, where the participants get another chance to rapid fire new ideas and criticisms and new ways of thinking at us. Then we'll be doing a guided tour of downtown Toronto. So you'll see the harbor front, you'll see the CN Tower. We probably won't get to go up in the CN Tower, but many of you will probably want to at a different time if you arrive earlier or later. Then we reach the third day, hump day. We'll be talking about storytelling, lived experiences, and local innovations. We have a virtual discussion on the topic of Indigenous rights, global health, and youth advocacy. Kiel, joining us from the Philippines, is a global health advocate, but also a York University student. And they've been doing a lot of this type of work with youth and Indigenous people about global health. We have Dr. Gabrielle Wong Parodi from Stanford University talking about adolescent perspectives on climate change and adaptive action, a case study from Bangladesh. And then we have Dr. Abatuna Kuaka, for the chair of the University of Dar es Salaam's research on forced displacement, talking about health, gender, and climate migration. And then Dr. Sean Holman will be back to talk about to do a skill building workshop on effective digital storytelling. So all the things that I mentioned to you that he was doing through journalism and documenting, he will kind of show us how we can do that, and of course in a trauma-informed way. And then we're going to have a field trip. So we're going to visit Food Hall TO, which is an incubator food court that features restaurants run by refugees and newcomers, whose mission is to advance entrepreneurship through business incubation while decreasing food waste and encouraging healthy and responsible consumption and production. So that would be really exciting. And then the fourth day on Thursday, almost there, almost at the end, I'm very excited about this topic because it's very future focused, but it's also something that's happening now and also happening, it needs to be thought about in Canada, which is the ethical strategies for planned relocation. So we're be joined by Dr. Ingrid Boas virtually, a professor at the Environmental Policy Group at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, as well as Justin C., who's a professor in the University of Melbourne. So very diverse time zones, but Justin is going to be able to make it work. And he'll talk about climate adaptation infrastructure in the global south, like these giant seawalls and dams and even artificial islands that get built under the banner of climate adaptation. Do they work? How effective are they? And what are some potential challenges or problems with them? Then we'll be back in person with the promise and perils of planned relocation. Dr. Erica Bauer is a researcher on climate displacement in the Environment and Human Rights Division of the Human Rights Watch. We are very lucky to have Dr. Bauer because she is one of the world's experts on planned relocation. She just finished her PhD from Stanford on this topic, and they'll be presenting some of their work from the PhD and from Human Rights Watch on community-driven planned relocation, cases from Panama, the Philippines, and Nepal. And then we'll have Julia Blocher, a professor from, a researcher from Germany back again, talking about the limits to adapting to climate change through relocation in Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and Eastern Africa. So that will be quite dynamic and a little bit of a debate, as there is, of course, pros and cons to planned relocation, and as Julia points out, limits. Then I will come in talking about my experience in research for over a decade in the Philippines. And I say, and the title of my talk is Tell Me, How Can a Fish Live on Land? And I talk about disaster-induced resettlement as climate adaptation in the Philippines, where people are being proactively moved or used, or when a disaster strikes, the disaster is used as an excuse to relocate people away from coastal zones, which the government deems as dangerous, but arguably is also very commercially viable and profitable. So it's a form of disaster capitalism where they get moved, and these slum dwellers often who would love to stay on that land, who have historically been on that land, the disaster is used as a way to move them. And a perfect example of this is when I started doing my field work after Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, they labeled that whole coastal area which was impacted by the typhoon as a no-build zone. So there are big signs everywhere, no build zone. You have to leave this area. It's not safe. They'll have typhoons again. There'll be storm surges again. Then about 4 or 5 years later, as people started to move and the land was starting to be vacated, they changed it to a no dwelling zone. Going back to what we had said with Dr. Roger Zetter, importance of labels, the reason they changed it to a no dwelling zone is because they wanted to build hotels and restaurants and resorts and cafes in that area. So it was no longer a no build zone. It just meant that people who used to live there can't live there anymore because there's a no dwelling zone. So it's a form of disaster capitalism that we're seeing. Then Dr. Erica Bauer will be doing a skill building workshop on rights-based approaches to planned relocation governance. And we really get to see a lot in terms of her hands-on experience because she was one of the experts that was asked by the government of Fiji to help with their planned relocation strategy. And Fiji is one of the first countries in the world to have a national and official planned relocation program. And then we'll do reverse mentoring again to end the day. And then our last day will be Friday, June 6th, where we come together and we envision climate migration in 2050. So I'll talk about the speculative governance of climate migration using cases from Tuvalu, Australia, and the Philippines. And what I talk about is the idea that speculation of future risk, of future disasters, of future loss is used as a way to control what's happening now and to proactively, like I mentioned in the earlier case, move people. So in the case of Tuvalu in Australia, they signed a historic agreement that would bring a few hundred Tuvaluans every single year on visas to Australia as a way to protect them from climate change, as a way to kind of provide immigration, migration pathways out of Tuvalu, as it will be a country that is going to be heavily impacted and eroded by sea level rise and climate change. But what's unclear about this climate mobility visa, as they call it, is the citizenship of those of people who move and the pathways to citizenship. Is the Tuvaluans going to be Australian? Could they have dual passports? And what happens when the land is eventually empty? Because part of this deal, and the reason Australia signed this deal, is that Australia gets access to the resources and they get a veto on defense and other goods and rights that Australia all of a sudden now has as a result of this visa. So have we used speculative governance to turn Tuvaluans who were originally, and probably in the last 10 or so years, mainly seen as climate refugees into climate migrants? And have we then eroded the rights that should be prescribed to them if they were to have remained refugees or vulnerable people as opposed to labor migrants? So I kind of talk about that, but I bring everybody in to kind of discuss this topic. Then Roger, Erica, and I will discuss how we can all, with everyone, craft a future agenda for climate migration in a world gone mad. Because, of course, it's not lost on us that there's a new world order and things will continue to change and there will continue to be consequences to the various administrations that are in power. Then we'll have a group discussion on potential research questions and projects to pursue. Because another big component of this is that not only do we want to have this week-long discussion, week-long teaching, participation, brainstorm, group work, we also want participants to leave with a strong network, not just with the people that they met, but also other people that within our circles that they can connect with. And we want us to work together on future projects, future grants, future papers, future advocacy projects, and any other projects that might come out. So we really want this summer course to work for you. And in any way that it does. So there's a lot of potential for networking and collaboration and skill building that can take place. And of course, we'll have a goodbye dinner to send everybody off. So that is our program. Now I will stop sharing and move to our website, where I think many of you would have already visited, but I will go through the various aspects about tuition and subsidies and discounts that we have. And I think then we'll move on to questions, and I think that's where you'll have a lot of questions about all of this anyways. So share my screen again. So we recognize that it's very challenging right now for most people financially. You know, the world feels like it's entering a global recession. So opportunities like this that are focused on education seem out of reach. So we want to make this as accessible as possible, because that's really education and collaboration and is really our focus at CRS. It's not about making money, and we likely will not make much money off of this. That's not the objective. So we are offering a 50% discount on the early bird virtual participation fee. So for many of you, this will be as low as 300 to 462, which is approximately 200, 320 USD, depending on where you're based. So we have rates that are for North American, and we have rates for those who are in Global South or students or have any other reason for needing more financial assistance. And the early bird deadline is now April 28th. So we hope that after this webinar, many of you will meet this deadline and be able to get this discount. The discount cannot be used in conjunction with any other offer, because we do also offer tuition subsidies ranging from 100 to 400 for in-person. So the early bird price for in-person is $1,000.75 Canadian. But again, with the subsidy, that does bring it down to be more reasonable. And we have early bird price for participants who are students, early career, under-supported, etc., or based in the Global South at 750 Canadian. And again, a subsidy can be applied on top of that to bring it down further. And after the April 28th deadline, the price will go back to the regular price of 1,500. So we're really hoping that you will be able to, for in-person and sorry, 900 and 1,354 virtual. But again, we really hope that many of you will meet the early bird deadline so you can get the much cheaper price. Lastly, I think in terms of accommodations, there are student rooms that are available to book at $70 plus tax per night. And we also have accommodations at the Schulich School of Business, which is a kind of a grade above the student rooms. But there's also hotels around and Airbnbs. So there are ways to make the accommodations costs affordable. And I think that is about it for my presenting side. So I think we can open up to questions. I don't see any hands up, or you can put it in the chat. Are there questions in the chat already? I think Michelle's already answered them.
If you want, you can unmute yourself and just ask the question.
Okay. Thank you so much for a detailed presentation, Dr. Sue. I really like this topic, to be frank. Like when you were presenting, my heart was just pumping throughout, because I love this stuff. So I was trying to do like register online, and I didn't see anywhere where you can apply for a subsidy online. Is it something that you have to write like a personal email to somebody else, or how?
No, it's after. So what we like to do is we like you to apply online, and when you apply, you will get an email with a link to apply for a subsidy. Because we didn't want to do it the other way, because we had people start apply for subsidies without actually applying. So you apply first, and after you apply, you get an email with the subsidy information and application.
Yeah, I did send my application, but I'm still to receive that email. Maybe they
Okay.
must be like
Michelle, do you have anything to add about that, perhaps?
Sorry, when did you send the application?
Let me just see when I received. I'm just trying to go through my emails right now.
Because we're trying to get a turnaround of a few days now to respond, but
Okay, so that should be like yesterday, a day ago.
oh, okay. So you should get a response shortly.
Okay.
Thank you so much for applying.
No worries. And also like I don't know, like how do you categorize students from Global South? Because me, I'm from the Global South, but I'm based in Canada. So do I qualify for that category, or
Yes.
qualify as a Canadian?
Yeah, because we've also grouped students in general, irrespective of where you are together.
Okay, so I'll apply under the Global South if I get you correct.
Yes.
Because I'm from South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Anybody else?
Hi,
Hello?
Dr. Yvonne.
Okay.
Yes, hi.
Amal, would you want to go first, or can I ask?
It's okay. Go ahead. It's okay.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Dr. Yvonne. Thank you for your detailed presentation. Myself, Nidhi Pandey. I was I was just thinking that in the presentation, have we missed such an important subcontinent, South Asia? Because South Asia is very critical for all the type of climate change, and important especially in case of flood and migration, though the migration doesn't happen in that big amount to the different continent, but still the flood is a very basic reason for migration and removing the boundaries, political boundaries which are there. So have we missed that part in the presentation, or we are going to have some discussion during the course?
Well, I mean, this is also part of why it's important to have participants from around the world, right? Because with the agenda, we can only cover so many places. And in a way, Bangladesh for us kind of captures that region, which I understand it's one country and it cannot. But the thing that's also really interesting about South Asia is also that there isn't a refugee convention, right? They're not signatories to the refugee convention. So the discussion is actually quite different and nuanced as a result of that.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't mean anything that you're saying is not valid, because of course the displacement is still happening. But going back to labels and the importance of labels for policy and discourse, the fact that they're not signatories of the 1951 convention makes that part more challenging, because there's not that much of that recognition of refugees.
Okay, okay. So you say that because the social responsibility they do have, but they don't have any political or legal responsibility. So international forum would not take it that seriously, or I can say that we are missing in some or other way.
Yes, but I mean, we would, it would be very challenging to cover the whole world, right?
Of course, of course.
But it doesn't mean that that's not valid. But that what I'm trying to say is that that's why it's important to have the summer course participants be really important part of it, right? So we can present the more higher level aspects and have participants like you, hopefully, fill in the gaps and do the reverse mentoring and challenge us on this, right?
Thank you.
Come up
So,
with new ideas and new ways to think and again, perhaps identify why certain regions aren't getting as much attention, even
yes,
though they are experiencing severe climate change challenges. I would
yes,
also add that sometimes countries are really reluctant politically to and Canada specifically, let's just say use Canada as an example, to be upfront about their challenges with climate displacement and climate migration.
I
For
completely
example,
agree.
but let me finish just a second. Lytton, BC was a wildfire that took out a whole community in Canada. And it's been 3 years since the wildfire, and no rebuilding has been done,
I completely
right?
agree. I'm very close to Banff. So,
Yeah. No,
so
but Canada does not talk about this. We don't want to talk about it. We don't
yes,
want to talk about planned relocation. We don't want to talk about, we don't want to make ourselves climate vulnerable, right?
yes,
How many times have you heard the Prime Minister or any politician talk about how Canada is climate vulnerable? We don't. So
yes.
there's that aspect too. But again, it's important for you to bring your perspective so we can have these rich, different thoughts that emerge.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'll enroll myself after this seminar. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, Yvonne, in the text, in the chat, there's a question: what would a person miss by doing the virtual experience, except the actual interactions?
I think the actual interactions, well, we're going to put a lot of effort to make sure that the virtual experience is very close, right? So, for example, even with the potential research questions and group work and potential outcomes at the end, we really want virtual participants to be involved in that as well. So that you don't have to feel that because you're not in the room, let's just say you're really interested in some of the work Erica's doing with relocation and small end states, and you want to be involved in some working paper or a panel or research or some kind of advocacy campaign that Human Rights Watch might be doing, then you're completely okay and available, and we want you to do those things. So we will be trying really hard, but of course you won't be there for the dinners, you won't be there for that physical interaction, but all the programs that you see in terms of the speakers and whatnot, you would have access to. And we'll, of course, be getting you to ask questions and engage in that way. And we might do some breakout rooms as well so that there can be more discussion within for the virtual participants between themselves that they might be missing when there's the in-person kind of mingling that happens between sessions or during the coffee breaks.
The next question would be, it's a question around the tuition fees for virtual attendance,
Yes.
some clarification. So the person is asking, do you pay $400 if you're in Quebec? So the excuse me, the answer to that is if you're a Global North participant, the regular price is $925, but with the 50% discount, it's half of that, right? And if you're a student, early career, under-supported, or Global South, the regular price for virtual attendance is $600 at the early bird rate, but currently 50% off of that.
So we're really trying to make it as accessible as possible. We feel it deeply that this is very challenging, and a lot of people that are quite interested in this topic are located in the Global South, and of course our students, and our students. So we're trying our best to do that, but at the same time, it does cost us quite a bit of money to run a program like this.
Yeah, segueing into the next question about tuition waivers. We did offer, we have modest tuition subsidies available. Generally speaking, though, we're not able to provide tuition waivers. Keep in mind that the CRS Summer Course is a fully self-funded program. We get no external funding. As Yvonne said, it's expensive to run. And so we're just not in a position to waive fees, but we try to keep it as low as we can.
Somebody had asked about the completion, the certificate that they get. So you do get a certificate of completion afterwards, and I know that's very important for many of you. And of course, you can put this on your CV as having done this summer course affiliated with York University and the Center for Refugee Studies.
The next question is about food, which is extremely important. Yes, during the week, a light breakfast and a lunch is provided, plus coffee breaks. Someone has asked around additional discounts or subsidies for Canadians attending. For those who are in other provinces, which attending in person may not be feasible. So you would attend at the virtual rate, and you would still be eligible for the 50% discount.
And we're also very understanding in general. So if you just have a specific situation that you want to ask about, just please email us and we'll do the best we can to accommodate.
Yeah, we do respond to case by case, of course.
Yes.
Emmanuel has
Again, 2 to 3 days. We're trying really hard to do as fast as we can, but we also have to prepare for the course, and so we can't be as rapid fire as we like to be in terms of our responses.
Right. We have a hand up from Emmanuel.
Go ahead, Manuel.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the opportunity. My question is right in the chat, but I would just like to know how we are supposed to apply for the conference, and also some of us we require visas to come to Canada. I'm wondering whether there will be an invitation letter that I can attach when I'm applying for the visa to Canada. Thank you.
Yes, once the individual, the applicant has been accepted into the course, a letter of invitation is sent if you require a visa. You have to be aware, though, the Canadian visa system is extremely slow, so it may not be possible to get something in time for the course at this stage. Other people seem to be able to get it within 3 weeks or so. You know, it's very, very hard to predict.
We just had some questions about how to apply. I put the link several times into the chat, but Michelle, could you just walk them through?
Yeah, well, you go to the summer course and you submit an application form. The application gets reviewed. And if you're accepted to the program, you will be sent an acceptance email along with instructions around applying for a tuition subsidy and how to pay. Plus, if you need a visa, a letter of invitation. The payment methods, it's credit card only, or if you don't have access to a credit card, we can do a wire transfer from bank to bank. Unfortunately, we can't do PayPal or anything like that. The university system doesn't accept the third-party payment organizations. So there's a question, I applied to attend in person, but I got a response that all seats are occupied. Can you arrange a chance for more participants to attend? Some of that, a lot of that is because we're trying to keep the group as diverse as possible. And so we got a tremendous number of applications from particular countries, and we had to kind of balance out the attendance a bit. So unfortunately, the room limitations are specific. We can only allow a certain number of people to be physically present, and we're trying to balance out the diversity of the group. And no, the fee does not cover the accommodation. You are responsible for your own travel and accommodation arrangements. Someone asked for the virtual rate for candidates in Canada. It would be 50% off of the $925 if you're registering under the Global North rate, and under the Global South rate, it's 50% off of $600. Asimwe has a hand up.
Hi, so just two questions. is there an application fee? Like, are you charged to apply?
No.
Okay. And then my other question is just based off of a previous answer you've given. So people have already been accepted to the program
Yes.
currently? Okay, so that means that there are probably very limited spaces available?
Yeah, right now, I mean, we have, there is a room limit, right? So we have accepted enough people. Well, actually, we haven't accepted enough people yet to completely fill the room, but we also understand that acceptance does not guarantee attendance. Things happen, right, in life and everything. So we do what the airlines do, right? We accept more than we think will actually attend. So there's still room.
So if you're interested, please apply.
I mean, it's pretty much unlimited for virtual attendance, right? But it's the physical attendance that we have to put in limits.
Mhm.
Okay, just a quick one. Yeah, so I was checking my application record. I applied like 2 days ago, and I have no response. That means the in-person it's already filled up. I can't attend in person, is it?
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm not the one. Yvonne and I are not the one who reviews the applications, but there's a review process that goes on. We will be accepting a certain percentage of people above and beyond the room capacity, because based on our experience, a number of people end up unable being to attend in person. So, it's like an algorithm, right? So that's what we do. So there is still opportunities for in-person attendance.
Okay, thank you.
You can just reply to that email to say you've been to this webinar and you would like to have a reconsideration or further discussions.
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
What else? Do we have anything else?
I think everybody's seen the link now several times.
Yeah.
So please just go there. And we also have frequently asked questions section there as well. And Michelle, can you type in the generic email that we're using for summer course?
Yep.
So you can send your questions there. And yeah, so the early bird is for another 4 days, and we'd really appreciate if you could put your applications in, and I'll be sure to be involved in the next round so we can ensure that people who have participated here and asked questions will get some fair consideration.
Yeah, if you apply before the April 28th date, you would still be eligible for the early bird rate.
Yeah.
And Willie, you had a question around the certificate. What was that? Whether you get one? If that's your question, yes, you do get a professional development certificate from the Center for Refugee Studies at York University.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Willie. And I will say that again, we've been running this for 29 years now. It's pretty iconic, if I can say so myself. And so it's lovely to bring another group of people together and be part of this. And we've had the thousands of participants from many countries. So we would like to have you be a part of that story as well. Amswe?
Hi.
Did you?
Sorry. So from what I've seen online, the course is a non-credit course. So could
Yes.
you maybe explain some of the benefits and potential opportunities that come from taking the course?
Yeah, of course. So I think, first of all, if you're interested in this topic of climate migration, and I'll have to say it likely will continue to be quite a hot topic academically, policy-wise, socially, culturally for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years as more and more countries get impacted by climate change. So being at the very forefront of this knowledge, having the state of the art of this knowledge is really important. We're not interested in visiting old debates. We really want to be forward facing and ask big questions. So I ask a big question that we don't have answers for, which is what do you do with the natural resources that surround islands like Tuvalu, like Kiribati, or even the Maldives? As the countries go underwater, which is expected, or the countries become uninhabitable, their resource zones, the nautical miles around them, where there is not just fish, but also critical minerals, which is a very hot topic right now around the world, who owns that, right? And in the case of Tuvalu in Australia, how much does Australia get in terms of having a say in Tuvalu's resources if they were successful in migrating, move most of the 11,000 people off of Tuvalu to be on Australia, and perhaps they become Australian, right? So I think the benefits of asking these big questions, getting your brain to think through them, and making them more future oriented is great academically for advocacy, as well as just having it as a social, cultural big problem to tackle. So that's kind of the intellectual side. I think for the very professional side, I think the fact that York University has been running this program for 29 years, it's a very reputable program. The Center for Refugee Studies is a very reputable center, very trusted. We are the largest and oldest center for refugee studies in Canada. We were actually created 1 year before the Oxford's Refugee Studies Center, and we're sister institutions, and they also run a summer course. So there's that aspect of it. There is the people and the brands that are behind this summer course in terms of having scholars that are teaching you from Oxford, from Stanford, from Harvard, scholars from big renowned international organizations like Human Rights Watch, Refugee International. So if you're in this space, you know that these people are top notch and really doing intense research. They're in the field doing a lot of work with local people and kind of bringing you really important insights that you might not have if you were to just read someone's paper. So that's really important. And of course, if you're in person, you get to network with them and become friends and colleagues and have that potential for future work. Everyone that has been invited to present, speak, involved in this conference, I'm sorry, it's not a conference, in this summer course has been asked and knows that a big part of it is supposed to be very collaborative. So you already have that bit of buy-in in terms of what you might get from the speakers in terms of mentoring, getting taught, sharing insights, collaborating together, working on future projects together. And of course, very physically, tangibly having that certificate of completion, being able to put on your CV that you took part in a course like this. It's an opportunity for students who are currently enrolled to make yourself look more attractive, whether you're going to apply for a graduate school or scholarships or other opportunities. If you're already graduated, this can look really good for the workplace if you're applying for jobs in the NGO sector or even in policy, because this is quite a policy-oriented summer course. And it's in general a really good professional development opportunity. So yeah, hopefully that is convincing enough.
Okay. Yes, I mean, that's all wonderful to hear. For online participants,
Yes.
is there going to be a similar opportunity to engage, like breakout rooms, and just like we're doing here, will we be able to ask questions?
Yes,
Or-
you'll definitely be able to ask questions, and we'll make sure that is a possibility. And we'll ensure that when we have that big conversation near the end for collaboration, that we give a lot of space for virtual as well. And of course you have people's emails and whatnot. And I think the important thing is I've had these discussions with the speakers regarding the buy-in. And I think that is really important because we live in a world where a cold networking, cold emails, cold LinkedIn messages don't necessarily get us anywhere. So this is a good way to be with a group of people who are interested, not necessarily like-minded. We like to have some debates and people disagree, but you know what I mean. People who are interested in similar things and advancement and leadership and being at the forefront of some of these discussions and topics, being together with them or even connecting with them through this, having this as a similarity can be very beneficial. And I should know, and many of you might not know this actually, is that York is the second biggest university in Canada. And we have about 60 to 70,000 students who are enrolled with us. And we're definitely the most diverse campus in Canada, and we take a lot of pride in that. So all these are all really good things to be associated and affiliated with during this time. Any other questions? Oh, yes, we will be uploading it tomorrow.
The program and list of speakers.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the program and list of speakers. I was just reading the question. We'll be uploading it tomorrow, so you'll have the latest. I mean, okay, great. Yeah, I really hope that we'll see many of you, whether it be in person or online. It's a very important discussion that we really want as many people engaged in and involved in at this time. And I would argue that it's important to still push on and press on with these topics that are concerned to us, because they will continue to be a concern after the current administration in the US is out of the picture. So for us to try to be focused on our work and what's important to us and not be distracted and continue to push forward with an agenda to protect those who are vulnerable to climate change and vulnerable to politics and all the other things that impact climate change, I think is important. So thank you for joining this webinar and considering our summer course.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.